Okay, everybody, I think we'll just get started here. This one's about bar members. Actually, I think I'll there we go. First of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I meant a lawyer. You should never take my word for anything. Actually, I meant a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything. I'm open to new ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? Thought-provoking questions, isn't it? If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If the people do not know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana-growing, whiskey-drinking, tax-evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the cops. And that's true. Think about it. It's exactly what went on. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Yep, true. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. If you call me a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust you. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Educate and inform the mass of the people. They are the sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. The only reason they're getting away with this crap that's going on these days is because there's so many brain dead idiots out there. Whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. The only reason that all this they're getting away with all this crap that's going on these days is because of the brain dead idiots that are out there. And informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people, their only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. If once the people become inattentive to the public affairs, you and I and Congress and assemblies, judges and governors shall all become wolves. It seems to be the law of our general nature, in spite of individual exceptions. Boy, I'll tell you, that's happening today. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Yep, you got that right. So this is municipal law. This is taken from Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases, meaning the same system of jurisprudence. That rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. So, civil law, Roman civil law, and municipal law are convertible phrases. And it's actually just municipal law. Oh, I see. Let's do this. There's a Roman law maxim that says, "Let him who will be deceived be deceived." So that's why that bought and paid for whore masquerading as a judge sits there and lies to you, and they'll lie to you all day long. They lie, cheat, steal, do anything they can. They're Satanists. They are the lowest form of life there is. You know, before 1900, they used to regularly hang judges. I think that day needs to come back. You're the father of the devil. You're of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. These people are liars and Satanists, and they deserve to get their necks stretched. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Well, gee, the sorcerers, that's all the drug dealers there's trying to peddle their vaccinations these days. Okay, that's all sorcery. And so hopefully my channel doesn't get taken down. But they already tried to take it down. I got a YouTube video about that. And I sent them an email and told them I was going to sue their butt off. And all of a sudden it was back up. It's amazing how that works. Anyway, sorcery is dealing in drugs. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So look at this. Texas rules of civil procedure, federal rules of civil procedure. Gee, that all sounds like municipal law. Look at that. And oh, look at this. Texas rules of civil procedure. And I'll guarantee you that every state has rules of civil procedure. Roman laws everywhere. All mortgages fall under Roman law. Negotiable instrument law is a subset of Roman law. That means Federal Reserve notes, stocks, bonds, etc. Bar members write all mortgage contracts. Bar members have decided every detail involving Roman law in America. Have bar members told you the nature of mortgages and negotiable instruments? Of course they haven't. They're liars. That's why I file bar complaints, folks. Bar complaints is the only way to go. In my opinion, I'll tell you, that's the easiest, simple thing to just get them running and hiding. File a bar complaint. File bar grievances. They call it bar grievances. You're right. The rules of civil procedure, but if you want to go into their kangaroo court, that's why we have to start up our own common law courts. You're right about the rules of civil procedure are out of the way. Our courts will be restored to their proper capacity, but one other thing has to happen. They have to have lawful money. We have to have lawful money. This Roman law is everywhere. Okay, we got to get rid of all of the Roman law, all of it. Yeah, it's certainly not even disguised as common law. It says all our public courthouses and that are Admiralty Maritime Law. You're right on there. But they're disguised as they're not disguised. They're a bunch of brain dead idiot sheeple out there that think it's common law. It's not even remotely similar. Anyways, don't get me going. They're a bunch of thieves and pirates. It's because these fucking brain dead idiot people out there don't have two brain cells, want to go out and get themselves vaccinated. Anyways, so let's keep moving here. Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting territory or other property belonging to the United States. And so, again, if you are subject to the regulations, then you are property of the United States. That means every state in the Union is a territory. That's all territory. They're all following federal regulations. You don't think they don't have payroll to handle? And they'll follow the code of federal regulations to handle that payroll. And so they're all territorial. It's all a territory, and it's property belonging to the United States. You know, it's interesting if you go into Title VI United States Code, and it talks about, you know, there's Downs versus Bidwell said that the states, that the territories, I should say, are states under international law. And so then if you look in United States Code in Title VI, which I think is immigration or it's border security or something like that. But anyways, it defines United States as the District of Columbia, Guam, American Samoa, Puerto Rico, lists all the territories. And then it says, and the states. And that's deliberately deceptive because the states that they're talking about are all the territories. Anyway, so they're saying them twice in the same thing. I mean, that's these Congress whores do. Okay, they're Satanists. They lie, they cheat, they steal. It's all about Satanism. It's all about lies. And if you don't understand what's going on, you get sold into slavery. They'll populate their prisons with you. And the same thing is going on in Canada. In Canada, in Section 2 of the Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act, it says owned means subject to the regulations. Okay, if you are subject to regulations, you are owned. And then Section 3 of the Government Corporation Operation Act of Canada says every corporation for all its purposes is an agent of Her Majesty and right of Canada. You don't think that's going on here too? They're all agents, okay? So this face diaper they're wanting you to wear, it's all because they are accusing you of being their property. Okay, you're a slave. That's all slavery. If you're owned, that's what a slave was owned. He was owned, and that's why he was a slave. So are you a slave? It's about time. People need to stand up. And in 1933, Hitler appointed Hermann Goering Minister of the Interior. His first orders was to defund and eliminate the police department so they would not interfere with his brown shirts, whose mission it was to riot, burn, beat up, and kill people in an effort to sway the elections. See, there you go. That's exactly what was going on. That's what's going on today. Same thing. And these brain dead idiots and these communists, these communists that have infiltrated into government are everywhere. And people are too stupid to figure it out. Ours may become the first civilization destroyed not by the power of our enemies, but by the ignorance of our teachers and the dangerous nonsense they're teaching our children. Well said. And it's because of the it's been going on for decades in the public school system. Actually, it'd be more properly called public fool system. And it's all these bar members. These bar members are behind it. Anytime any government official talks to you, there's a bar member behind it. I guarantee you. The cop, anybody, there's a bar member that's going to defend their actions. So any government official talks to you, file a bar complaint against the bar member. Find out who it is. That's the one. That's where it's all coming from. A republic is the only form of government that is not secretly, not eternally, at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. So, you think we have a republic now? The republic is here, but it's pretty well dormant and asleep. You have a democracy, which is a bunch of thieves. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and the other by mere private persons. They're engaging in warfare, secret warfare, according to their bar members. Under international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre, because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. Don't you get it? These bar members, you are the enemy. Why do you think they're sending their pigs out to assault you? You are the enemy. Time to wake up, folks. Judge works for the state, prosecutor works for the state, police or the pig or the witness works for the state. The vast majority of disputes that the police initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the police, and the only witness, also the police, all represent the same party. And since no corpus delicti, mens rea, or acts reus can be produced, it doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. And remember, the bar member. That's the judge is working for the bar member. Okay, the bar member is the real problem. Okay, that's who you file a bar grievance against. In every state in the U.S., The Supreme Court regulates the bar, and they know the law. And I sent a nastygram, and we're going to talk about that in my next weekend when we're doing advanced uh, um, procedures. I sent a nastygram. I send nastygrams. I didn't send one. I send them to judges and lawyers. I sent one to the chief judge of the Supreme Court. He resigned. He resigned like within a couple days. He resigned. Him getting it. That was in Texas. That was like about 5 years ago. And so, again, do you know who you are? In my nastygrams, normally in my notice and demand, it says, I accept your oath of office. That's the first paragraph. Well, in my nastygram, it starts off, says, normally I say I accept your oath of office, but you and I both know you have no intention of honoring your oath of office, so fuck your oath, you motherfucking son of a bitch. Kind of goes from there. You know what I mean? And it's like about 20 pages long. Each paragraph will end with, fuck your oath, you motherfucking son of a bitch. Anyways, the Supreme Court is required to regulate these bar member scum. And the sooner we put a stop to that, the better. Or not a stop. They're the ones, they know the law. And so you got to rein in these bar member scum. That's what you need to do. And I don't care if he's a prosecutor. If I get assaulted by the police, there's a prosecutor. If it's a city, there's a city prosecutor, and then there's a city attorney. And so I file a bar grievance against the prosecutor, a bar grievance against the city attorney, and then I'll go to the law firm. They're probably in a law firm. I'll go to the law firm and find out who the partners are in the law firm, and I'll file bar grievances against them too. And it's amazing what happens. They don't want to talk to me anymore. I'm telling them I don't want to participate in their warfare. They're calling me an enemy. And part of my bar grievances, I make sure and put in there the statement of original status that's in my other videos that I've got on YouTube, where it shows that I'm one of the posterity that's talked about in the preamble to the Constitution. Yeah, making DC a state, I think that's a bit of a joke. I don't think that they can do that, quite frankly. Of course, you know, they're talking about moving the capital. They're saying that Trump is really the president, and the new capital, they've got a new capital in Missouri. And so then in a situation like that, they could make DC a state. So, you know, that could be part of the. I guess we'll see. We'll see. I've heard that Trump is really the president, and um, they're talking that there's a new capital already picked out somewhere in St. Louis, and they're you know. So I guess we'll see. All of that is in my book, and I guess this is a good time. Well, I'm going to be plugging my book. I got my a little insert in this presentation about my book, but I wrote a book about the deep state and Trump and who he's dealing with and how they got there and where they came from and their history, and it's full of law dictionary citations and court citations, law dictionary definitions, international treaties, all sorts of stuff. And so I say very little. It's my opinion. Anyways, we'll go through that when the time comes. But yes, they're talking about making DC a state. If they move the capital, then DC could be a state, I suppose, if they want to make it a state, but it'd be an awful small one. Of course, Delaware is a small state too. Anyways, yes, laugh out loud. I agree. Yes, the birth certificate's a fraud. Okay, now, and this is one thing I never do. I never capture that birth certificate because that goes into international law, and all of that is international law, and we the people are supposed to be shielded from international law. If you look in the causes and necessities for taking up arms, which there's going to be a slide in here that shows that. Anyways, it says that martial law supersedes and replaces international law, or I should say common law. Martial law, which is international law, supersedes and replaces common law. And so you don't want the government's supposed to shield us from international law in that context. Anyways, I'm gonna do some presentations on the law of nations. I may do them before on the next weekend if I get them ready. Otherwise, it'll be upcoming because I got to read Vattel's book on the law of nations, and there's going to be some good stuff in there. I already know there's good stuff in there, so I need to go through it and get out of it what I can. Anyway, so that's upcoming. And we all need to be getting together to convene our jural assemblies. I agree, whether you're in Oregon or anywhere else. And I applaud your efforts in Oregon. There's an email I get from Ron. I can't remember what it's Ron. Anyways, they've been making some pretty good inroads into jural assemblies. I'm hoping that it's working out for them. Anyways, so we'll keep moving here. Judge wears a military uniform. Judge sits there and plays stupid. If you fail to follow some obscure rule or procedure, they sell you into slavery. Everything they do is a fraud and a nullity. The name is a fraud. Everything's a fraud. That's why I haven't been in court lately, but I'd be calling the judge Satan and that kind of stuff. I'm sure they'd be impressed. When acting to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge in municipal court is acting as an administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administering or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension, as an agent of the involved agency, but only as in a ministerial and not in a discretionary capacity. Randy Kelton. Okay, Randy Kelton has a website called ruleoflawradio.com, and the guy is pretty sharp about he doesn't go for common law or any of that. He goes statutory completely in Texas. This is just in Texas, because every state you're going to have to learn your statutes and learn what to do if you're going to do the kind of stuff he does. Anyways, he goes in there and breaks it off in their ass, and he uses their statutes against them. And so you can do that. All these judges are bought and paid for clerks, and once you understand that, what you do, and one of the things Randy talks about is bar grievances, and so I've been filing bar grievances, but when he started talking about it, then I really started filing them. And we're going to be going through some of those bar grievances next weekend too, by the way. So anyways, these bar grievances, he said that he saw this, they went and had a public pretender. This guy had a public pretender, and they got assigned to him, got assaulted with this public pretender. So the guy didn't really want this public pretender, and so he just filed a bar grievance against him. And this public pretender was begging the judge to get off the case, and he said, I cannot work under the circumstances of having a sort of Damocles hanging over my head. So I'm telling you, a lot of these bar grievances get trashed. Matter of fact, I'll bet they all do. but they still have an effect. Randy said that they get 3 bar grievances and they lose their bond. They don't have a bond, they can't practice law. and so and a law firm gets 3 bar grievances, and they have to dissolve the firm and start up a new one. And so I actually, one of the bar grievances I'm going to go through next week is one that I filed against a third-party debt collector that was in Texas. They send out these third-party debt collectors. Excuse me. These third-party, they're law firms, right? And they send you this threatening letter through the mail saying there's a warrant issued, because it's actually a capias, and you could be arrested at any time, and setting threats through the mail to fictitious address and fictitious name. And so, I mean, that's all great stuff to put in a bar grievance. So I went. It's a big law firm in Texas. It's Linebarger, Gogan, Jensen, and I can't remember, but there's 4 names. Anyways, but they got offices all over Texas, and the one that sent it to me was in San Antonio. So I went and got on their website and found out who their partners were, and I filed bar grievances against all of them. There's like 7 partners, and so I'll be surprised if I get anything from them again in the future, and maybe they'll have to shut down and start a new one. Anyways, and I just mentioned all the felonies, and so maybe I'll even get some of them in jail, because that's and actually another thing I've been working on is with the grand jury. I've been trying to convene a grand jury, although trying to get people to participate is like trying to pull teeth. Anyways, I've been trying to get people to convene a grand jury because I want to bring an indictment against the Texas State Bar. And think about it. The Supreme Court's supposed to be regulating a state bar. That means the Supreme Court gets the indictment, and so there's like, if you go on the state bar in Texas, at least there's like 150 board members. So all of those board members would have an indictment against them. I mean, I'm telling you. I guess we'll see what happens. I'd really like to do that, but if I can get enough people together, the brain dead idiots in Texas, don't get me going. Anyways, so I'm telling you, bar members, bar grievances, anything, you get anything from anybody, there's a bar member behind it. You need to find out who the bar member is and bar grieve the bastard. Don't get me going. It's the accepted rule, not only in state courts, but in the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes, as a bought and paid for clerk for the agency. Judges have become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, act as mere clerks of the involved agency. So statutes obviously only apply to the slaves. People don't get that. And then these bar members send their pigs out to assault you. So grieve the bar member. I'm telling you, the bar knows the law. The Supreme Court knows the law. I'm telling you, break it off in their ass. If you want to file a bar grievance, if you're in Texas, I just got the form for New Jersey, so I can, if you send me an email, I'll send you the one for Texas if you're in Texas, or if you're in New Jersey, I can send it for New Jersey. Otherwise, just go to the bar's website and you got to look around. They're not going to make it easy to find, but you can find the bar grievance form and their procedure. They always make it so that you can file it online. I never file it online because I always have stuff I want to attach to it as evidence, because I want to build a case. I want to build a case against the bar and all of them bastards. Well, I've heard that. She's the one that talks about authenticating. There's a lot of people talking about authenticating the birth certificate, and I might be confusing her with some other people, with Anna von Reitz. But so that's possible. A lot of the stuff she talks about, another thing she talks about is, and I've seen this where she talks about doing the DBA. Well, again, it's all fraud, and I that's, if you participate in the fraud, then you can't claim fraud. And so I refuse to participate in it. They're assaulting me. Matter of fact, one of the things I'm looking up now is, somebody told me that there's a bar crime called personage, where lawyers, when they assault you with their Roman cult Sestake trust, is a crime called personage. So I've been doing some research on that. I was actually trying to get it into this video before I presented it, but I'll do another video. That's not a problem. And but there's a bar crime, or that's what I'm hearing, is there's a bar crime called personage, where they assault you with their Roman cult Sestake trust. That's a crime, and so I need to find evidence of that. So right now you're getting a little hint of something that's coming, but that's exactly what they do. I don't admit it's their Roman cult Sestake trust. They're a bunch of thieves and pirates. I want nothing to do with it. It's a fraud, and if you admit it, you go into international law. You have to understand that. All of that falls under international law. In international law, you're dealing with thieves and pirates. And you think they're going to be honorable with you? Good luck with that. Anyways, they're nothing but, they should get their neck stretched, is what should happen. They should, don't get me going. Anyways, yeah, she does. She talks about the DBA. I've seen that where she talks about that. Maybe she's changed. I don't know, but I've seen it before. Anyways, moving on. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. And so, again, if that bought and paid for whore is playing clerk, then he cannot issue a warrant. He cannot do anything. And it's all a fraud and a nullity. Where there's no jurisdiction, there's no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Say. A matter of fact, I even filed bar complaints against judges. They're all bar members, okay? And if they're not a bar member, if they lose their bar membership, then they can't be a judge anymore. And so I filed bar complaints against judges. I've started doing that. I'm waiting to see what their reaction is, and because if we'll see what happens when I filed a bar complaint against a couple judges, and a municipal court judge and a district court judge, and so then the next step is I want to wait and see what happens, and then I'm going to start really filing bar complaints if depending on what reaction they have. Anyways, they're all bar members. Matter of fact, I filed bar complaints against U.S. attorney, against assistant attorneys. Again, if I filed a lawsuit and I sued the district attorney, and one of these assistant district attorneys showed up. Well, I filed a bar claim against the assistant district attorney, and on their paperwork, they actually listed two assistants. So I filed bar complaints against both of them, against the district attorney. And then what happened is the U.S. attorney showed up because I sued the judge. And so then this assistant U.S. attorney showed up. And so I filed bar complaint against him and a bar complaint against the U.S. attorney. And that U.S. attorney resigned. Anyways, it happened to be around election time, so that's probably a good excuse for it to happen. But that U.S. attorney resigned. Anyways, yeah, I'm telling you, these bar complaints are just bar complaint, all of them. I don't care if they're an attorney and they're in your state. I don't care if it's federal court, state court, whatever. It's their attorney, they're in your state, they're under the bar. And the Supreme Court regulates the bar. Bar grieve the bastards. But in fact, and in law, such statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in the state under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and the so-called 14th Amendment. And that's a summary. I don't believe that that United States, versus United Mine Workers, I don't think the Supreme Court would actually say that, but that's got to be a summary from that case. Anyways, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall be duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. And that's the current so-called 13th Amendment. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. And then here's a court case from 1871. He, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights, except those which the law and its humanity affords him. He is, for the time being, a slave of the state. And that's exactly what it's all about. You are owned. You are a slave. Are you going to be a slave? I'm not going to be a slave. And that's why I send out my nastygrams, and we'll go over those nastygrams, and you'll see some very interesting results. I'm kind of shocked myself at the results of what happened when I sent nastygrams to a federal judge in particular. Anyways, we'll talk about that next week. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and make a merchandise of him or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. And so, again, that's exactly what our prisons are populated with, people that have been sold into slavery. And they all need to get, these bar members that are putting them in there need to get their necks stretched. We need to put this evil away from among us. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. And so, again, federal enclaves is what they're talking about there. And so it's interesting to note that we've done some research in Texas, and there's no federal enclaves in Texas, because what has to happen is it says purchased by the consent of the legislature. Okay, so there has to be an act of the legislature to be a federal enclave, and there's no federal enclaves in Texas. And so then you have to understand, of course, Texas is under a military occupation, and that's how they get away with it. But so the point is that we there's a guy in my group called Charlie, and he's a pretty sharp guy, and he's the one that came up with this. And this is the nice thing about networking, because I don't know everything. And so these people come on my group, and there's this guy in my group called Charlie, and he makes all these tickets and stuff go away by just he'll either write across it or attach a piece of paper to it and take it in and file it into the case, or send it to him by certified mail. Anyways, on the piece of paper it says I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm a state national. Whether if you're in Colorado, it's Colorado national, or Texas, you're a Texas national. And then say Constitution of the United States of America, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And then he says, vacate this citation, and that's what he says, and the case disappears. And so, anyways, I'm probably going to do a video about that. I've done it in one particular case, although it's with a city that I was already, how would you put it? They put on a show trial for me in a case over a citation, and held their show trial and got their conviction, and I still refused to pay it, and then I got assaulted by another city, and so they basically give me time served or something like that. So anyways, they know I'm not going to pay it. And so it's we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see what happens before I make a video about it. Because I'll send that bought and paid for whore a nastygram too. I already sent the chief of police one. Matter of fact, oh well, that's all stuff for other videos. I could go on and on about it. Anyways, yeah. So this is very powerful. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and you make it under penalty of perjury, and they got a problem. I'll be. I've gotten bar complaints. Well, it's see what I do is the ones I did to the third-party debt collectors. Every situation's a little bit different, so I make them different. Like I've got some that are third-party debt collectors. I can what I can do is upload some to YouTube or to Google and put a link below the video in the YouTube video. In the comments, or not in the comments section, but in below the video, I can put a link there. I can do that. I'll put some bar complaints there, and but everyone's a little bit different because it depends on the situation. You know, sometimes it's a third party debt collector. Those ones are actually pretty short and sweet. I just attach the threatening letter that they send me, and then I handwrite it all. And yeah, I'll upload some sample bar complaints. That's a good idea. Remind me, send me an email or something if I don't do it before next weekend. Remind me. Yeah, I can give you a copy of that too. Again, most of the time I do things to lay a foundation. I'll send them a notice and demand, tell them that I'm one of the original people, or a posterity as found in the preamble to the Constitution. And so, I mean, again, everything I do, I lay a foundation. So then I can go after them and smear them, you know. It might be a dishonor if you're in commerce, but if you're the king, there's the language of sovereignty, and I've seen court cases to talk about it, and that's why I start calling him motherfucking son of a bitch. You know, that's a good idea. Good question about Commonwealth. There's a difference between a Commonwealth and a regular state. I haven't researched that, but there's definitely a difference. Okay, so let's keep moving here. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens, even when one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens. Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. And that's why this Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 is so powerful, because it's pointing that out. It's going right to the crux of these pigs are all U.S. citizens. They're all D.C. territory. It's D.C. territorialism is what it is. And when you put it out and point it out in writing, and short and sweet, one page, that's all it is one page. That creates major problems to that judge. If you go and file that if he doesn't do anything and you send it to the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, he's going to have a problem. International law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory but the common law of a state. State and federal venue discussed. The civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to federal district court under 1331 and 1441 of Title 28, giving jurisdiction to such courts of civil actions arising under the laws of the United States. And that's taken from, so you could actually bring it into federal court if you wanted to. I've got, I'll talk about that when I'm going through my nastygram that I send to the federal judge. Jurisdiction over federal areas within the states. Report to the Interdepartmental Committee on the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas within the States, Part 2. A text of the law of legislative jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President June 1957. And this is taken from pages 158 through 165. Now, you can actually just do a Google search and pull these documents up. They come up pretty easy. That's how I got them. Governors like Abbott are issuing their edicts under military dictatorship to ensure their property, is safe. Recall Abbott. Get rid of his butt. Executive orders are not law. Executive orders are color of law. Executive orders are equivalent to regulations, and regulations are for government property. If you're a slave, you better do what you're told. Color of law, according to bar members. Color means an appearance, a semblance, a simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real, a prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance. A plausible assumed exterior concealing a lack of reality, a disguise or a pretext. Everything they do is color of law. It's all bar members. That's where you have to go. You go after the bar members. They know. They're required to know. They may sit there and play stupid, but they're required to know. That's the courts have talked about that. Colorable means that which is in appearance only and not in reality what it purports to be. Hence, it is counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. It's a lie. Okay, if it's color of law, it's a lie. It's Satanism is what it is. That's exactly what it is. It's Satanism. They lie and cheat. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because the wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. And again, it's all Satanism. It's a lie. The forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy. They form a part of the public debt of the United States. And again, that is because that's the fake money, okay? That's color of money, okay? And this is Congress the tyrant. It's all coming from Congress. The Constitution and laws of the United States shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. And so you start, that's why I just talk about the federal Constitution, and it's the supreme law of the land, and it's Article 6, Clause 2, and so you start. I don't go into their court because they'll start threatening you with contempt and that kind of stuff. I'll serve it on them, and I'll file bar complaints against the lawyers because that's where it's coming from, okay? That judge is just a bought and paid for whore working for the prosecutor, okay? The prosecutor is the real enemy, okay? That's the enemy. And that prosecutor ought to get his neck stretched, okay? But so should the judge. They're all foreign agents and scumbag bar members. Okay, moving along. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Okay, that's where common law rights come in, okay, because our common law rights are unlimited. So the founders really did everything they could to protect our rights. There was interlopers that were mixed in. There was Jesuits that were trying to sabotage everything, but the founders really did a pretty good job protecting our rights, trying to anyways. I'm sure that they really intended to anyways. And this is one example of the Ninth Amendment is really powerful. Our rights are unlimited. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental or natural rights recognized among all free people. As a general rule, men have the natural right to do anything which their inclinations may suggest, if it be not evil in itself, and in no way it impairs the rights of others. Libre Code. And it was a bar member that wrote the Libre Code too, right? A bar member wrote it under instructions from another bar member. Because Lincoln was a bar member too. A place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army. Whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not, martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest. The presence of a hostile army proclaims its martial law. So everybody knows there was a civil war. All of those states are under a military occupation. Everybody knows that there was a Spanish-American War. All of those states are under military occupation. Now, there's a treaty there, and this is Article 2 of the Libre Code. Martial law does not cease during a hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the commander-in-chief or by special mention in the Treaty of Peace concluding the war, when the occupation of a territory continues beyond the conclusion of peace as one of the conditions of the same. So, again, there was a Treaty of Peace in the Spanish-American War in the 1840s, and that was called the Treaty of Hidalgo. And but there's no mention in that of ending the martial law, and it has to be special mention in the Treaty of Peace. It's got to be specifically mentioned. Special mention in the Treaty of Peace. Now, also, if you think about it, there was a Royal Proclamation of 1763, and it said that everything west of what was then the colonies, there was the 13 colonies in the U.S., and then there was also the Crown provinces of Upper Canada, Lower Canada, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, I believe. And so under the Royal Proclamation, if you went beyond the boundaries of those provinces and territory and colonies, that you had to have a passport, which means, and it was territory. And so, and now all of that is occupied. And so, again, so that's another reason why all of everything west of there is under military occupation. Also, another thing is that because of the bankruptcy, even the 13 colonies are under a military occupation, under martial law, because of the bankruptcy. Martial law affects chiefly the police and the collection of public revenue and taxes, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader. Refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the army's safety and the safety of its operations. And all of this is enforced by bar members. Remember that. All of this is being enforced by bar members. And this is Article 10, General Orders 100, which is the Libre Code again. A republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. There's the New World slave flag under the medical dictatorship going on right now. There's 3 kinds of martial law. Again, this is all according to bar members. So you can consider them pretty knowledgeable, and they know. Full martial law is a declaration of martial law is issued. Troops are put on the streets, used only during wartime, used on a foreign country, or when actually invaded by a foreign power to put down an armed rebellion. Martial law proper is when law of the armed forces, when a captain tells a private what to do, enforced by court-martials. Martial law rule is a law of necessity and emergency, allows the domestic use of martial law powers used during times of peace, can continue for centuries during a military occupation. And that's taken from Supreme Court case Ex parte Milligan. That was the Civil War era Supreme Court case. And is cited also in Diet versus in the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett. In the case Diet versus Turner. Now, I got to tell you guys that this video is right now, it's public, but after, well, I might leave it public because I'm going through this new material. I guess we'll see. I have to think about it. But it might be made unlisted for my subscribers. We'll see. That originally I was planning on making this unlisted. Matter of fact, yesterday's videos are both unlisted, and I'm planning on making all of the first weekend. Actually, the whole Northeast Private Information Share, all 3. There's 3 weekends this year, and so all 3 weekends it's going to be unlisted. Now this one is new material, and this is new material that, you know, I don't know, probably should be public. I'll have to think about it, but it's gonna be, I don't know. We'll see whether it's unlisted or not. If the point being is that get a link, because if it's unlisted, you won't be able to find it. If you get a link, then you'll be able to then save the link somewhere. You'll be able to find it. Unless you're one of my subscribers. Okay, if you subscribe, then you'll be able to get access to it. It'll be on Patreon, and so on Patreon, and or even if you subscribe to my exclusive videos, then I'll send you a link. But otherwise, it's going to be unlisted. We'll see. Anyways, keep moving. My book is now available, Trump, A True American Patriot or Not. It's got Mike Blackwell on there because he babysat me through the whole thing. He actually asked me to write the book. He's actually the publisher. And he asked me to write the book, and I had the manuscript ready in about 2 weeks. And then he had to babysit me through the whole process of making it into a book, and that took about 6 months. And so the book was published last fall and like last August and July, I think. And it was last summer then. Anyways, he asked me, he babysat me through the whole thing, so I put him on there so that, you know, he can get something for babysitting me. But I wrote the book. And it's about Trump and the deep state and who they are and where they came from. I actually sent him a copy of the book, and he sent me a nice letter back saying thank you for the thoughtful gift. And so I think that most of the book is it's like it's full of court citations, law dictionary definitions, international treaties, all sorts of stuff that it's very little of it is my opinion. Some of it is my opinion. Um, for example, I don't know if you've heard of Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes, I think that, in my opinion, all of these billionaires, they get approached by the New World Order crowd when they get to be billionaires, and they get told that you're going to go along with our program or you're going to turn up dead. And I think Howard Hughes, the reason he was hiding out all the time and he was worried about being poisoned and stuff is he'd been approached and he didn't want to go along with their program. And so he was always hiding out. He was worried about being poisoned, all sorts of stuff. And I think the same thing happened with Trump. There's actually a helicopter crash that happened in 1984. And 3 of his executives got killed. He was supposed to have been on that flight. And I do aerospace engineering consulting. I happen to know something about helicopters. And they don't crash because the blades come off. But that's what happened in this case. And they crash for a lot of reasons, but not because the rotor blades come off. So anyways, so I think he knows exactly what he's getting into. Another thing is that I don't know how many of you know who Jerome Corsi is. He is a guy that has a political science degree, a PhD in political science from Harvard. He's written a bunch of books, got a YouTube channel. Excuse me. Anyways, he's got a YouTube channel. He was actually indicted during the Mueller investigation for lying to the FBI, and his wife said that I'd rather come and visit you in prison than have you plea bargain to something you didn't do. And so he refused to plea bargain it, and they dropped charges. And anyways, there's a YouTube video where he says that it's on his channel, where he says that he was visited by 5 generals in 2015, and they said there was a group of generals in the Pentagon that were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but maybe you want to go talk to Donald Trump first. And so they, 3 months later, he gets a phone call, and they decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. And so I think, this is again my opinion, I think the entire Trump election and administration is a giant military psyop. The military is busy restoring the republic, and everything's planned and orchestrated. I think that that the reason they have all of those National Guard troops in D.C. is because those Dominion voting machines were transmitting data overseas through an Italian satellite that was leased to the Vatican. And so there was major repercussions when that came out that last December in Italy. There was heads rolled, the Italian government collapsed. There's a bunch of things that happened, and I think that Trump is the president. He's the president of the republic, and what they're doing is they're basically letting them hang themselves so they can they're going to have work arms trials. I guess we'll see. It's kind of like a big pawn in a big game of chess. The people they're building the case against are pretty powerful, and so they have to build a case, and it has to be a good case. So, anyways, that's what my book is about: is who he's dealing with, how they got there, where they came from. Did you know that King George financed both sides of the War of Independence? Yes, he did. That's actually in the Definitive Treaty of Peace of 1783. So, anyways, that's in my book. If you order it, well, we'll keep going here. This is the back of the book, and this is this part here is, I didn't write this part here, but I think that it's really well done. It says here at the bottom, it says, does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And you're 100% right. You can order the book from Amazon or my website. It's $30 plus shipping. I prefer you order from my website. And if you order from my website, it'll be autographed. It won't be autographed from Amazon. So it's up to you. But sovereigntyinternational.fyi. You want to know the origins of the deep state? Who is behind it? You want to know why it's called the Trump administration? You want to know what an administration is? Did you know there's two national governments? There's actually a Supreme Court case, Downs versus Bidwell, that talks about it. It said there's two national governments. One operates within the Constitution, the other one does not. And what happened is in Articles of Confederation, look it up. Article 1, it says the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. And so what happened is in 1861, the southern states walked out of Congress and they ceased to have a quorum. And so Lincoln ordered them back under executive authority, and they've been operating under executive authority ever since. And now all those people are dead, so they can't even reconvene Congress. So anyways, in 1871, they set up an unconstitutional corporation called United States of America. And you'll see that on your passport. You'll see that on your Silver Eagles. You'll see it on Air Force One. You'll see it all over the place. So anyways, there's the two right there. And in 1933, that unconstitutional corporation went bankrupt, and it was seized by the creditors. Any corporation goes bankrupt, it gets seized by its creditors. Under the Articles of Confederation, that was a trust indenture that was set up. A trust indenture. And Articles of Confederation and the Constitution are a trust indenture. They're a trust. And so, anyways, so what happened is the Congress went bankrupt, and it's now owned and operated by somebody. And all you have to do is look at the Speaker's podium in the U.S. House of Representatives, and you'll see that it's owned by the Roman cult. And that's why Trump has to go and see the Vatican the president has to go and see the Roman cult on the first international trip. They always go and see the Roman cult. And then, so what's happening now is, that's why if you look at the Speaker's podium in the U.S. House of Representatives, you'll see two Roman fasci on each side of the Speaker's podium, and there's a Roman spear that's planted on all conquered nations. And all of that's in the book. And that's why Pelosi gets up there and says, we can't read this bill until after we pass it. It's exactly why Pelosi gets up there and says, we can't read this bill until after we pass it, because she's taken orders from her handlers. Anyways, an administration is a ecclesiastical office. Do you know how Trump came to be president? I think we just talked about that. You want to know who owns Congress? I think we just talked about that. You want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? I think we've certainly talked about that in other videos. They're enforcing the martial law. You want to know how you have become a slave. You want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was. You want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip. In reality, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. Now, a lot of people don't like Trump, and they say he's a Jesuit and all this other stuff, and I don't know. I really don't. But the thing I like about him is that they hate his guts so much. They're just doing anything they can. They lie, they cheat, they steal, and just because of that fact, I like the guy. Just because they hate his guts so much. So, everybody's got to come to their own conclusion. Well, first of all, in order to protect yourself from this stuff, is you got to understand the nature of the problem, and then it's actually not that difficult. I'm actually going to write some sequels, whether they're sequels or whether they're just another book. I'm planning on writing some more books. The guy, Mike Blackwell, asked me to write some more books, and so at some point I probably will. But right now, I haven't even sold enough of my books to make it worthwhile. So I'm not in any big rush. You know what I mean? And we'll see, I guess. But right now, I haven't even sold enough of my books to cover the cost of publishing it. And so we'll see. Martial law is the law of public necessity. Necessity calls it forth. Necessity justifies its exercise. Necessity measures the extent and degree to which it may be employed. That necessity is no formal, artificial, legalistic concept, but an actual, factual one. It is the necessity of taking action to safeguard the state against insurrection, riot, disorder, and public calamity. What constitutes necessity is a question of fact in each case. And so that's taken from Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. And that's right. Tyrants use it as an argument. Oh, we're just doing this because we have to. And the slaves, oh, they just have to do this, so we need to be slave. It's so true. The action of Congress in the passage of the first Legal Tender Act was placed distinctly upon the ground of the existing imperative need of government, and a legal tender clause was urged and adopted as a war measure. And that's, again, U.S. Supreme Court, Juilliard versus Greenman. No state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in the payment of debts. There's no lawful money in general circulation since 1965. And so that's one of the things that you can use against them. Money means a medium of exchange. This is under the Uniform Commercial Code. Money means a medium of exchange currently authorized or adopted by a domestic or foreign government. The term includes a monetary unit of account established by an intergovernmental organization by agreement between two or more countries. So again, this is the Uniform Commercial Code. That's international law. That's bar members, right? That's bar members. So they go and change all these definitions. Party, under international law, means a person engaged in a transaction, right? Commercial contract. Governments descend to the level of mere private corporation, take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen where private corporate commercial paper and securities is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. International law does not mean sovereign, according to the bar member scum. That's the Clearfield Trust Company versus United States. And a similar case, governments lose their immunity and descend to the level of private corporations when involved in commercial activity, enforcing negotiable instruments as is fines, penalties, assessment, bail, taxes, remedy lies in the hand of the state and its municipality seeking remedy. So, again, this is bar members. Okay, bar members have done this. Congress claiming its martial law power to declare war, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions, impose martial law in the United States, and never discontinued it. The result was an extension of military and municipal jurisdiction of Congress, but where's the evidence of this? Look at the 13th Amendment, the Civil Rights Acts, the legal tender laws, the 14th Amendment, etc., etc., etc. And that's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. The 14th Amendment is an extension of national military powers presently used in a municipal character and enforced by municipal laws stretched far beyond their original limitations and enforced in Article 1 tribunals. Again, that's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. And this is that book. I mean, I would highly recommend everybody get that book. It's really a quick read. It's full of all sorts of jewels. It's double spaced. It's about 150 pages, but it's double spaced, so it just goes really quick. And all of the stuff is just really good. Somebody sent that to me. I don't know how I got that, but I got it. That's a lot of stuff happens that way. And this is causes and necessities for taking up arms. We were talking about that earlier. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law. Instead, thereof, the published and order the use and exercise of the law martial. And for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter, so they changed it from a republican form of government to a dictatorship. We saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. Okay, despotism is dictatorship. That's why the founding fathers stood up. The people are too stupid to figure out what's going on nowadays. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. Money manipulators. And boy, that is going on today big time. Big time. They're trying to keep the price of silver down. They're rigging the price of gold and silver. And that's why people are going to Bitcoin, but they're even messing with Bitcoin. They can't mess with it as much as they do with gold and silver. But they're even messing with Bitcoin to some extent. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. And that's Article 4, Section 4. That doesn't include a military dictatorship, by the way. I can tell you what a republican form of government isn't. A republican form of government is not a star chamber. A republican form of government is not a dictatorship. There's a bunch of things that it isn't. They say that as long as you can vote, well, only slaves can vote. So U.S. citizens don't get a republican form of government. That is not a republican. But the bar members will tell you that's what it is. That's why I don't even talk to them. I just file a bar grievance. That's the only thing they understand. They're going to sit there and lie to you and cheat and do everything they can. So just file a bar grievance. A republic is not the law of nations. So martial law is the law of nations. Okay, if it's under martial law, that falls under the law of nations. But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government and interfering with their relation to each other. The power of government and the rights of citizens under it are positive, practical regulations plainly written down. The people of the United States have delegated to it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. And so it's not the law of nations, and that means it's not martial law. And all of these elections, everything falls under, it's all under the law of nations and martial law. If you read the Reconstruction Act, which is martial law. The purpose of a republican form of government is to shield we the people from international law. So these bar member scums have done. Two national governments exist, and we talked about this earlier. One to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. And so that's Downs versus Bidwell. This Article 1 of the Articles of Confederation, style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. And yet that passport says United States of America. Passport defined. A passport is a written document given to a person or persons by a commander of belligerent forces authorizing him or them to travel unmolested within the district occupied by his troops. It's a military document. Passports are issued by the State Department or similar office in other countries to diplomatic agents or others entering or traveling in foreign countries, which are the same general character as those issued during the war. The latter should, when practicable, have a photo of the bearer attached. And this is taken from the Rules of Land Warfare, 1914 edition, Passport Safe Conduct, Safeguards and Cartels, Chapter 7, Section 4, Article 276, page 100. And look at that. That's a Federal Reserve note. Actually, that's not a Federal Reserve note. That's a silver certificate. And so that's a little bit different, but it says the United States of America. Even on the Federal Reserve notes you have in your wallet, say the United States of America. And I was noticing recently, and I think I'm just going to add that slide in here right now. We'll put it right here. I noticed recently that on a deed, not a deed, on a land patent. Just looking for one. There we go. No, that's not it. Oh. Just looking for it. There we go. This is a land patent. It's the only other place I've been able to see this. The United States of America. On the Federal Reserve note, it's all block capital letters, which means that that's commercial paper that falls under Roman law. And so I understand that that's um, that's a it's a negotiable instrument, falls under Roman law. So I understand they probably want to make a fiction for that, but this is a land patent. That's a real land, and there's no border. I mean, this is a real land grant, land patent. That's real powerful. Anyways, um, so yep, right there, the United States of America. To all whom these presents may come, greeting. And then if you go to the end of that land patent, oh, it's already closed. Anyway, so I think that was signed by Roosevelt, if I remember right. I think it was Roosevelt, one of those, like in the 30s, one of those railroad land patents. At common law, only gold and silver are legal tender. If you want common law, it requires honest measures. The best you can do with Federal Reserve notes is discharge debt with limited liability. There is a distinction between debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. These bar member scum just lay awake at night with this stuff. They're all Satanists. It's a lie. Discharge falls under the law of nations, which is international law. Copies of these documents can be found on my website and linked under my recent YouTube videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information, shares a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the fake money, the military script, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. This is the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. These bar members have done this. It's all over the place what these bar members have done. As used in this act, the term United States means the government of the United States, and the term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States and includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. So that's meant for internal use of the government only. Government employees. Gold Reserve Act of 1934, 48 Stat 337. Federal Reserve notes are commercial paper. Federal Reserve notes are a forced loan. Federal Reserve notes are an IOU. All commercial paper falls into two categories: promissory notes and IOUs. A requirement for a promissory note is a promise to pay. Gold certificates and silver certificates were promissory notes. You can never pay a debt with a debt. Check out my other videos. Banks Are Thieves playlist, Roman cult playlist, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 7, do it yourself, how not to volunteer for the selective service in the drown, Martial law is here. Do it yourself, no income tax. Do it yourself, free mail. 1 and 2, do it yourself, kangaroo courts, 1 through 17. Canada Border Pigs playlist. Bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. Well, it looks like it's about 1 o'clock here. No, it's 11 o'clock local time. No, it's noon. Right. It's just after noon. So we're going to break for lunch, and let's see if there's any questions. In California, there was a state citizen service center that was run by Richard McDonald. He's passed away now. I don't know if anybody has kept that thing running or what, but I know there's people in California. Yeah, I've got over 400 videos. I would suggest if you go to my website, I've got a page that has links to my YouTube videos. That's the easiest way. They're organized by topics. So if you want to, and subjects that way, because YouTube, they're not going to come up, in the recommended videos as much, and you won't know. That's why you go to my website is the best place to get where you can go and do some research and study. Anyways, and I've also got a page with some documents, and that'll get you started. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to end it right now, and we're going to reconvene at 1:30, and after lunch, and continue on. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you this afternoon. Bye for now.